What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? With a once-in-a-lifetime historical event happening every Tuesday,
Right.
current events kind of get lost in the noise, and we don't spend a whole lot of time focusing on current events.
No.
Specifically, a lot more like historical, how we got to the historic events every Tuesday. But
Right,
not,
yeah. The history behind the historical
Mhm.
events, and not the just hanging out.
But I feel like we've had some historical events over the past couple weeks, and it's worth
It's just a lot of them happening like right around the same time
Yeah.
of each other.
and big ones, real big ones. I mean, like big compared to the normal big ones, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So I feel like it's a good time to do a current events episode and just talk about sort of what's going on, to riff it out a little bit here, and no point in peeping the keep awaiting. No point
got it.
in. Let's
got
start with dessert, is what I'm saying. All right. 34 felony convictions.
Might as well be one, but
It's 34.
34, but
it
it is
is
34.
technically 34,
No,
which is
yeah.
a lot. That puts him in first place for felony convictions, beating out a 44-way tie for second with 0 for presidents. No third place.
no. He's in a realm of
A league of his own.
Right. Just the way he likes it.
This is true.
He's the most felonious president there ever was.
I am the most felonious. Like, you ask anybody, I've got more felonies than anybody.
Anybody they've ever known. Yeah.
You know that this will make him really popular with the darker skinned communities.
Oh, because now he's
A criminal, and they love criminals.
Sure.
You know, like they like
Yeah,
sneakers.
Obviously, yeah.
Sarcasm, heavy sarcasm. Don't cancel me.
If you haven't been canceled yet,
I
don't
know, right? Anyway, but there's a lot of talk about this stuff. A lot of questions, a lot of misinformation. I feel like going on around it now too.
Well, yeah, naturally,
Uh-huh.
it's Trump, so everything he says is a con. Everything he does is a con. So obviously, everything that goes wrong, is wrong.
But even from the left, I think that there's a lot of misinformation or misunderstandings of what's happening too, and I think it's
All right.
worth talking about. So there's been some big questions on this, and one of the big things, especially from the right, is oh, this is never gonna stand up. Why were these felonies not misdemeanors?
Right.
Because all of these crimes are technically a misdemeanor, right?
right.
And
The combination of the two.
So
makes
how
one
does
a
misdemeanor
felony.
plus misdemeanor equal felony? And so like paying hush money for election interference was the number one misdemeanor, kind of the underlying ground.
There was another one in that creating a scheme with the news outlet.
Yep.
That was also a potential misdemeanor, and that's what kind of created a lot of misinformation
Yep.
controversy in that, the judge saying like you don't have to be unanimous on which crime is a misdemeanor that was covered up by those business expenses.
Just that one of them was a misdemeanor.
You just have to agree that he did do one of them, which I think if you cover them up in the same way, that's how they like fall under the same umbrella. And like it's a little bit confusing, but it really is like pretty basic understanding of like, well, if you did this misdemeanor and then covered it up with another misdemeanor, that creates a felony. And so that's why it doesn't matter which misdemeanor you're covering up. It still creates a felonious situation.
So the falsifying the business records to cover up a misdemeanor, whether that was paying the porn star or
paying the news outlet.
The news outlet.
Yeah.
And so that's how it became a felony, or 34 felonies in this particular case. So then obviously the cult is in a serious case of the copards right now. Like, which is just beautiful to watch them fall apart from every angle. Again, it happens every 3 days or so.
Not that they were like actually ever principled, but like the principled, law and order type Republicans now don't subscribe to that anymore. So that was like the one thing they could hold on to. So I don't know where they're going to go if they start saying that our justice system is corrupt when we're like, yeah, yeah, it is corrupt, but not in the way that you're talking about, man.
Sure, let's have some justice reform.
Yeah, let's look at that.
So most of the conservatives in my comments and that I've seen online are like, oh, this is never going to hold up. It's going to get overturned immediately. He's just going to appeal it, and they're going to throw it out because they don't understand how the law works. And so how likely is an appeal?
An appeal's it's already been filed.
Well,
so.
How likely is an appeal to be successful?
Oh, to be successful. Well, so like neither of us are lawyers, so like if you're coming to us for that take, you should look somewhere else.
This is not legal advice.
if it needs to be said, which I don't think it does, considering we're drinking beers on set here. I don't think you should take somebody legal advice from those. Us.
You're hearing it third party first here.
Right, exactly. So from what I've heard, and I have listened to a lot of people, a couple podcasts about it, there is some degree of some ambiguity on some of the issues that they're going to bring up as part of the appeal. Part of it being the venue change in that district heavily voted against Trump in 2016 or 2020, which they did not grant them that change of venue because the crime happened while he was in New York.
Right.
So it didn't happen when he was in Albany or Rochester or,
specifically?
No, Poughkeepsie.
Poughkeepsie.
It happened in New York City. So I don't know. Some of that stuff is related to the venue change and just how the judge.
Also, like, what the fuck? Could we get this set in a place like Dallas, Texas, or something?
Right, yeah, I don't know exactly like what you're gonna say. They had the ability to work the jury and the jury's selection process just as much
as the prosecution.
And they agreed on the jurors.
And there's certainly millions of people in New York who still voted for Trump. So
yeah, I mean, certainly they could find a couple, right? You would think at least one. So like, if you need a unanimous ruling on one particular issue, you're not going to have it if you have one person who, supposedly, unless the jurors actually doing their job and they're being impartial, which hopefully that was the case.
Hopefully they were. Hopefully there was a Trump voter there who voted to convict because they were doing their job.
Or more than one. They could have all been Trump voters. I honestly don't give a flying fuck. The odds of that is almost zero.
Right.
But to say that like these are 12 people who are being forced to be there, by the way,
right.
like they're just doing their civil duty of listening to a court case.
Although if you were ever going to be on a jury case, like this was the one you'd have to twist my arm the least for.
No, but you would get caught out.
Right.
You would not get to make it to the jury selection
there's
process.
no fucking way.
If you have any sort of social media that's political, I guarantee you're not going to make it on there. So there's a lot of things that they put out there that I don't feel like actually have a lot of good merit. There's the specific case law. I think is where they potentially have some leeway.
Yeah, there is. So I just wanna make a point first, is that the appellate process takes years. Like, I mean, it takes years.
This got done in 7 weeks. That was amazingly quick, and it was scheduled within a year, I think, of the indictment.
But to appeal something,
like
to go through the whole appellate process the appeals process takes years.
Yeah.
So the fact or the people who think that this is going to magically get overturned and he won't be a felon come November, you're live your pipe dream, guys. Whatever helps you sleep at night. But barring basically intervention by God herself,
right? And the Supreme Court is not going to step in. It seems like prior to November.
Well, and there's very little. The Supreme Court almost never steps in on a state criminal matter of a garden variety like this,
especially without any appeal. Right. Like they're just not going to step in on the first, circuit court level.
No, it has to work its way through, this will probably never go. So these are very unlikely to be overturned. I mean, almost completely impossible to be overturned before November. Once they do reach that point, if he lives long enough to, get to there.
Not to say he's going to be assassinated, just that he's old and eats McDonald's way too fucking much.
Lives off of Adderall and Diet Coke, and so he, if he makes it that long in life, Judge Merchant is a very seasoned judge. who every legal scholar that I could tell who has kind of commented on this said that he very carefully waded through this minefield to avoid any of the pitfalls that the case itself would lend itself to a successful appeal.
Yeah, and a lot of the in-court objections, apparently he was fairly fair and was agreeing and disagreeing on both sides to at least a somewhat equal amount.
Yeah.
So he didn't do a lot to make you feel like he was just explicitly on one side or the other.
And then especially when you consider how goading Trump was to the judge and his family and everything.
Right. The fact that he didn't get any fines or contempt, found in contempt, that he just got a gag order put on him.
Yeah.
I think he's Trump, so he gets away with a lot, but I think he got away with one there.
Yep. Well, but I think that in the long run, that makes that case more airtight as to anything that the judge had been unfair to the defense.
Probably.
So there's that. So as you were saying, SCOTUS, highly unlikely that this will ever reach the Supreme Court. And if it did, it definitely wouldn't be before November. I mean,
no, they're not even seeing shit barely seeing stuff right now that's been in the docket for years. So.
Yeah. And even if it did make it to them, it's really unlikely that they would overturn this because it's a garden variety criminal case on a state level, and it's not something that
there's not a lot of constitutional law that is played because he's being targeted on a state law level. State law certainly can be unconstitutional,
absolutely, and they could touch on that, but this is something that has decades and decades of precedent and millions of cases, and maybe not millions, but thousands of cases, surely, that are and obviously this is where I think the best chance of an appeal being successful is that, well, there's thousands of cases that fit under this umbrella. The way that this one's being applied is a little bit novel.
There's certainty to that for sure, which I hear that it's the way that it's being brought is unique and I don't think it has been done before. But we've never experienced a politician like Trump before.
No.
So I think a unique approach to a unique person.
A lot of uncharted waters here.
It kind of brings me to just talking about this whole case in general is that I feel like it's too little, too late. First of all, but also it should have. He had 3 years to bring this to the court, and he waited until right around election time to start doing it. And he's going to be
talking
sentenced.
About
Bragg, yeah.
Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor.
Yes, he waited a while to bring it to court.
Well, I think a lot of it was gathering evidence, and I think that this is part of the thing.
Well, this was 2016 campaign election,
right?
So I don't know. If you're gonna bring something against,
but when did
Trump,
the hush money thing even come to light? Because it happened in 2016.
I think that came to light in 2020-ish.
Yeah.
So I guess my point is to do this now. You can see for the backlash, especially from the the Trumpers, is that this is a political persecution, and in their mind, it just cements the people who potentially were
but I mean, they were going to be that way anyway.
Probably. And maybe I'm overthinking that portion of it.
I'll touch on that one in a minute. But just on the
case itself.
The case itself, the way that these two crimes, how he tied them together, I think is the first time that this has ever been done, and I think that is where Trump's legal team has the most traction. But again, Bragg is a very seasoned prosecutor. He took obviously a lot of time putting this together.
Right.
And the way that it was presented to the jury, I think I don't see a whole lot of hope for a successful appeal there either. Most of the legal scholars that I've read don't seem to have a lot of But appeals courts can be finicky. They can do things that are unpredictable, like they overturned Weinstein's conviction. So shit happens, and it's possible. Anything's possible.
Yeah, that was fucking weird.
But and once again, back with SCOTUS, they're a bunch of fucking hacks at this point, political hacks, and they have been known to break precedent for partisan politics, and obviously most of them are conservative. Quite a few of them have been appointed by Trump at this point.
Yeah, and even the ones not, like freaking Scalia, Scalia and Thomas.
Scalia's dead.
Whose wife hung the flag upside?
Clarence Thomas.
No, that's I thought they were.
She's the one who was like the big January 6th.
What was
it was Thomas and Alito.
Alito's wife hung the flag upside down. It wasn't Clarence Thomas's wife.
Right. I do remember Alito's wife. Yeah, the big flag controversy, Flaggate. With them.
So between Clarence Thomas and Justice and Alito, like you've got two who weren't even Trump's electees or whatever.
Also, I feel like if you've got a batshit significant other, like being appointed to the Supreme Court should already just be like you clearly can't make sound life decisions.
I don't think Clarence Thomas was married by the time he was, or he might have. There was some sort of controversy about a woman that he was sleeping with. I don't know if she was like an intern or he had an affair with her around his,
sounds very Clarence Thomas-y.
Well, yeah, just politicians and just people in power in general, but yes.
Yeah, but he seems to be the most corrupt of the Supreme Court, which is now a very low or high bar, depending on which aspect.
It's starting to like people are like, oh, you're ruining the sanctity of the law within the eyes of the public. It's like, well,
that's been gone for a while now.
Sort of been gone for a little bit, and not in a good way.
So anyway, that's kind of where his case stands. He will very likely still be a felon for many more years.
Yes.
So can he still run for president? Can he vote?
Answer's yes and probably.
It's pretty much yes and yes.
Right.
I've noticed a lot of people being like, "Oh, it's funny he can't vote, but he can still run for president." And
well, I saw one. It was like he can't join the military anymore.
Yeah.
He can't own a firearm, and he can't vote. And I'm like, well, he was never able to join the military at this point anyway. So what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, and when he could, he had those bone spurs.
Right, exactly.
Bone spurs.
He just couldn't. And then obtain a firearm. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's fair. But he can still vote in many states. So including Minnesota.
Yep.
Hats off to Minnesota.
Well, and that's the thing. So he's a resident of Florida, which is where he'd vote, and Florida honors the law of the place that a felon was convicted, and so he was convicted in New York. New York allows felons to vote so long as they are not currently serving a prison sentence during the election. So the only way that he wouldn't be able to vote for himself is if in November he is behind bars, which is possible.
Yes.
Each conviction carries a maximum penalty of 4 years. The judge could choose to have him serve those consecutively, which would be 136 years. As much as we'd love to see that, highly unlikely. I'm going to say basically impossible.
Yeah, for somebody with his criminal record that being non-existent, a jail sentence would be a harsh term for anybody, much less
not just
city or not existing past president, whatever.
So he could be sent to jail for any length of time that the judge deems necessary.
House arrest.
He could be sent to house arrest. I'm going to say probation is most likely what he's going to get.
Yeah, probably.
And I know that a lot of people are going to feel like that's sort of an affront to justice. But I want to say that probation is still going to be very problematic for Trump.
Yeah.
And depending on how kind of petty the Judge Merchant wants to be, it could be...
Yeah, so it kind of puts a leash on Trump. I think so right now they're petitioning to have the gag order removed. About the trial, which is fair. Whatever, the trial's over. You don't know any of the jurors, so you can still make statements. Maybe he does like a shortened gag order where you can't say like the jury, go get the jury or say it's something inflammatory like that. But he should be able to discuss the case, I guess, and defend himself of. Just like the court of public appeal.
He might be able, discuss the case, I suppose, but he shouldn't be able to talk about the jury at all. I mean, because there is a possibility that they could have been identified. People in the room could have been sitting in there figuring out who these people are,
Oh,
and
certainly.
then that could put their life at risk.
Yes.
And the judge could just leave the gag order on him for shits and giggles because he's been such a dick to the judge.
Right.
And frequency of probation, restrictions of probation.
Right. For him to jump through a lot of those hoops, I mean, I think that just makes his life more difficult. And even if that's the only thing that happens based off all this, is his life gets a little bit more difficult.
Well, you think about it, he's running for president right now. We're in an election year, and he could be like, you got to meet with your probation officer weekly if you wanted to.
Sure. Right.
That would definitely throw some wrenches in Trump's.
I think a lot of some probations like make you stay in a particular state, like you can't even like leave the state. I doubt that that's the type that they would.
I
give
doubt
him.
that that's going to be in this case, but yeah, he could, and so that's kind of it's going to be.
Or is that house arrest or something like that?
I mean, well, there's house arrest, and then there's I don't know what it's called, but there's certain things where you're not allowed to leave a certain jurisdiction or a certain state, something along those lines. But it's interesting because this is fully in Judge Merchant's hands now. Trump has been an asshole.
Yeah. His statement after the ruling, after the actual convictions, was pretty problematic for a gag order to be on there.
So it'll be interesting to see how petty the judge can get. I mean, and that's the thing, is he could assign the pettiest of probation requirements and still be like, I could have sent you to prison for 136 years. I'm not imposing a very harsh penalty.
Yeah, and so if Trump does, appear to break any laws in the meantime on said probation, the judge has the ability to potentially send him to jail. So
he could put him in those kind of positions where, well, you couldn't follow a gag order. Can you follow probation requirements? That he could have an automatic trigger that if you violate these probation requirements, you go to jail. And I don't know. I'm very much looking forward to this part of it. It's July 11th that the sentencing is happening, and I know that it's probably going to be pretty mundane, but I am hoping for just.
I mean, there's two things that I'm looking forward to on that week. Obviously, one is the sentencing. Second one is the second half of the Bridgerton season's coming out, so we're definitely gonna. My wife and I gonna be binging that. But I guess my overall concern with this in general, and I as much as I think he belongs in jail because he's a fucking criminal, just flat, just baseline criminal. I don't think that it's a good thing for our country.
No, I just understand what
democracy
you're saying.
Wise,
I understand.
And not even to say that I think he deserves to be on the ballot. I just think that his following, and there's too many people that will do things that are bad.
And this was always the argument for pardoning Nixon, right? Was that it was for healing of the nation and that sort of shit. And I'm not sure how much of that I buy into. I
mean, if Nixon fucking did nothing compared to Trump, so if anybody deserved to be pardoned,
Nixon shoplifted a candy bar by comparison.
Yes.
It's funny when Nixon suddenly looks like small time, petty criminal. I guess ultimately, it's almost certain that Trump's going to be a felon come November. And probably will be a felon for the rest of his life, no matter what. He probably won't spend any time behind bars. He can still run. He can still vote. And all of those who are going to vote for him probably still going to vote for him. I don't think 34 felonies at this point are enough to get him to cough up the Kool-Aid.
No.
And start seeing things, in
may sway some independents, though.
What fucking independent is left in this guy? I mean, if you're an independent at this point, it's like the pussy grabbing, I could get on board with that. And, him being found liable for rape and fraud, I can be okay with that. And, him colluding with Russia. And
so I agree with you entirely. I don't understand how you could be a person who doesn't have a strong opinion about Trump one way or the other at this point.
But a felony about covering up that you banged a porn star while your wife was pregnant, which we all already knew.
Yeah. So there was a significant number. I forget the numbers exactly. I want to say somewhere around 40% of independents polled said that a felony conviction would sway their, potentially sway their vote.
Yeah.
So take that for whatever you fucking may.
I don't think it can hurt. Here's the thing is, I know a lot of people are like, oh, this is just going to rile up the base more. It's like, you can't rile. The base is fucking...
the base is the base.
Perpetual state of riled. There's no...
Yeah, how many more evangelicals can you get?
Exactly.
He already has like 87%. Like,
he has the people who are still on the Trump train, no matter how far off the rails it goes, are riding that motherfucker all the way to the bottom of the ravine.
Well, just the Republican Party is completely... there is no Republican Party now. It is the Donald Trump Party. So there is no turning back.
But there is disenfranchised Republicans who won't vote that way. They didn't vote that way before. And I think that...
The rhinos.
Yeah,
whatever you want to call them.
So I don't think that this is going to have really any effect on election results. And hopefully it does. 40% of independents, if that holds up come election time... great. I like I said, I don't think it can hurt anything. It's going to help their fundraising money because every time the Trumpers feel that poor Trumpy Dumpy is being
unfairly treated.
Yeah, they give them, they go sell their house and give him the proceeds.
Right. So I will say, and I think this is potentially a little conspiracy theory on my part. I do feel like this pushes us closer to a political unrest, not civil war, but militarized actions from his followers. I think this pushes us closer to a situation where we have domestic violence.
Oh, maybe
not domestic violence between people,
right.
Just like
whatever.
But
civil unrest,
civil unrest in the form of localized militias doing acts of violence against state courthouses, just political offices in general.
I'm not that concerned.
Sure, and like I said, I think this is a little bit my conspiracy theory.
I think there's a possibility that you may get one or two of those incidences. These people are the most disorganized people on the fucking planet. I mean, you saw January 6th, and they're like, we got there, and like, what do we do?
And I get that, but January 6th was like the practice run,
right? But their practice runs are always... I mean, they've had a lot of practice runs. They're just not great at these
but
things.
all it takes is one to actually work before shit actually goes down.
But if one sort of works, the crackdown response is going to be... So, like, it's in one of those situations where...
the long-term implications certainly maybe are not as dire, assuming they don't actually... If it gets to that point, they don't actually succeed in, like, overthrowing the fucking government.
Yeah,
which I doubt.
No,
but we could discuss, and I think we should have a conversation about the potential implications long term of civil unrest and just like political violence.
I'm all for that.
The outcome of this election, because I do feel like it is a compelling story.
Oh, absolutely.
And B, there are threats being thrown around right now.
100%. Yeah, no, 100%. I think that'd be a great episode. Not one we're going to cover today, but definitely something I'm happy to talk about.
Last point about the trial, witch hunt. Right?
Oh, right. Well, so, and I just want to point out, he is still facing 13 criminal charges in Georgia for trying to illegally tamper with votes, 44 federal criminal charges in 2 separate cases.
Yep.
And SCOTUS is likely going to be handing down a vote or a ruling this week on whether or not he is blanket immunity.
So he can... From what I've heard, is he can he can pardon himself if he gets elected of federal crimes, but he cannot do that for state crimes.
Right, but not even on the pardon side. So, they've made the Trump legal defense has made the argument that the president is immune from any wrongdoing.
Oh, right.
While he's president.
So that's his like defense is to get elected. So even if the the court case continues, he can't actually get prosecuted or like convicted until after he's out.
Well, no. Right. So, no. So if he committed the crime while he's president, he didn't commit a crime. Is basically what they're arguing. Like the president is a
dictatorial type state.
The president is above the law but that's exactly the argument they're going with. And so they actually Jack Smith took that because he knew that that's what they were going to do, but they were going to try to fight it all the way up the federal court system to get there. The first federal court appeal they're like, no, that's fucking the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. You are not above the law simply because you're president, and trying to overthrow an election is not part of your official duties. Right. Therefore, you are not immune.
Yeah.
And so, but their whole thing was, I'm going to draw this out as long as I could. So Jack Smith was like, no, fuck you. I'll take it to the Supreme Court right off the bat. And that's what he did. So depending on how the Supreme Court rules, they could rule in Trump's favor, and then basically...
And that's the issue with Alito is not going to recuse himself.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so the problem there is if they rule in his favor, then basically the one federal charge of inciting a riot and all that shit is off the table. That won't move forward at all.
Yeah, I don't think so.
They will push for Georgia to stop that case. Now, Georgia could still move forward with it because it's a state case, but it is also while the president was still president.
Yeah.
And that probably won't hold up, so there's a likely chance that would fail. And then the one that would have a little bit of gray area is his classified documents thing. He sent them to Mar-a-Lago while he was president, but he possessed them after he was not president. Mm-hmm. And so... But also that would be on shaky ground, right? So depending, if they rule that way, there's a good chance that none of these other criminal trials will move forward. If they rule in favor of the government, he will be going through 1 or 2 criminal trials, likely before the election.
No, I don't think they're moving forward with the Georgia case before the election.
No, the Florida federal case.
The document case.
Yeah, the document case would move forward before the election.
I guess other than this New York one, I'm like, the Georgia one is the most significant one.
Georgia could, in theory, move forward before the election, depending on the ruling. But very up in the air on that one.
It seems like that one's going to take a lot longer.
Yeah. So that's where we're at with those. And then likely what SCOTUS will do is kind of rule in the middle and being like, you're not there's no blanket immunity, but lower courts have to go and review every single charge and whether or not what he's being charged with was an official duty or not. And that would take lots of time. And if they do that, none of these cases will move forward before.
That seems like it could take a while. It doesn't seem like the greatest use of the SCOTUS time, but
no. Well, SCOTUS wouldn't be doing it. They'd put it down to lower federal courts, and the federal courts would have to go and individually review those. And obviously, the wheels of our judicial system move at the speed of smell. So right. So yeah, that's where we're at. And then the witch hunt thing. Obviously, we've been hearing it. It's politically motivated. It's a witch hunt. And if you say that, you're a fucking moron. Just genuinely stupid. Because
honestly, I don't feel like our current judicial bodies are prejudicially, charging either party.
No. Well, first of all, our judicial system is heavily conservative. I mean,
well, the AGs and stuff that's political based,
right? But I mean, judges are appointed by president. Federal judges are appointed by presidents. One of the judges overseeing one of the federal cases is a judge or a Trump appointee, which almost seems like a conflict of interest to me. Judge Cannon.
One of my Trump buddies, I play video games with him. He's a good dude, but he's a Trumper, and he said he didn't really have like a great document to back the statement up, but he said that there doesn't seem to be any particular bias of Trump appointees or just like Republican nominees versus Democratic nominees in the rulings that they're giving.
Right.
Like I said, he didn't have anything to back it up, and I don't know what that fucking means when it comes to a political case. I would tend to think that somebody has to preside over it. Unless you're going to have a group of judges do it.
Right.
Then I don't know how.
Right. And everybody's been, all of these federal judges have been appointed by a president.
Right. And confirmed by the Congress.
Right.
So.
But that's the point. Is judges overseeing these who are likely conservative in mindset, but also
supposedly impartial.
And also if this was, the Biden crime family prosecuting their opponents, Hunter Biden is currently, right now, in trial on 3 felony charges for purchasing a gun while being addicted to drugs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And
Hunter Biden.
yeah, his son, the first president's son ever to be indicted on a felony.
So if Biden had the ability to prosecute his political rival, he'd also have the ability to make his son not be prosecuted at the same time. Like, and it's like, if you have that much cognitive dissonance, just go see how long you can hold your breath for, and then hold it a little longer, please.
Well, and then you got like people like Bob Menendez, Democratic senator in New York, being charged with bribery. So like, there's not a case to be made, in my opinion, in any way that our judicial system is being prejudiciary against political groups.
None at all. So yeah, if you think this is a witch hunt, or Trump's legal woes are in any way politically derived, shut the fuck up and sit down. Like, you're out of your depth, Donnie. Like, this is
I do want to say one thing about Hunter Biden's case. Is I just saw today a couple of my buddies posted something about Hunter Biden's laptop.
Oh my God.
I just want to say that one time on the show, Hunter Biden's laptop, because it gets talked about so fucking much.
It's where Hillary keeps her emails. You know that, right?
Supposedly, it was not tampered with, according to the FBI. So whatever the fuck that means, I guarantee it doesn't mean what the Republican Party thinks it does.
It doesn't mean anything.
It is not going to show probably the fucking
smoking gun that they think.
Vice President Biden meeting with foreign officials to get whatever.
And you know what? If it does, if there's some crime to be uncovered, fucking prosecute him.
Yeah, no shit. Like, honestly, if you have the proof, let's fucking go, man.
Let's go.
Because guess what? I don't fucking want Biden as my president anyway. Right. You're doing me a favor, bro. You're proving yourself wrong, getting rid of a guy that sucks ass, and we're gonna talk about why he sucks ass in a little bit more. It's a win-win for me. Like, if he's a criminal, he should be charged.
Yep, absolutely.
It's that simple.
Absolutely. And if he was a criminal, he would have been charged. I mean, if the Republicans had anything on him criminal-wise.
Well, yeah, especially since most of the crimes that they say he did while vice president, which was a while ago.
Right.
So,
yeah,
you got a lot of time there.
And every time they're like, we've got some compelling evidence. It's like, well, we're waiting.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
But I mean, it was the same thing with Benghazi. It was the same thing with Hillary's emails. It's everything.
Yeah, I actually just kind of read up on Benghazi, to be honest with you. Like, I didn't follow it at all while it was going on, and like just was like, what does that word even fucking mean anymore? And it was hilarious that basically Fox News, they just fucking
ran
every single day, every hour, every minute at Benghazi, and they're like, we just want answers. And like, the report gets put out, and they have the guy on their show,
the Republican-led report, yeah,
and they don't ask him about the Benghazi report
because there was nothing.
They never wanted the answers. No. They never did. They just wanted fucking
But that's old news. Back to current news.
Right.
Dumb news. We got some dumb news. I wanted to throw some just dumb shit that's happening in here.
I love it.
Elon, who is in the process of syncing Twitter, is
fucking Tesla, by the way.
Yeah, Tesla's struggling a little bit too. They're trying to distance themselves from him a little bit.
Yeah, no, they can try.
Yeah,
they can try. He bought it enough to make himself a founder, you know.
But you can, I mean, a board has a lot of power. It's interesting to see if they will eject Ejectocito cuz on that one. But Elon, ran into the iceberg, backed up, ran into it again, and now it's sinking. And his attempt to refloat his Titanic is porn.
I mean, it does sell.
It does sell. This may not be a bad idea. It's
sort of reduces their, not that they have had any sort of not accountability, but reliability or like whatever for like being a news type ish organization anymore. I think they're going to lose it.
Yeah, no, I think this is just going to become only. X is already a great name for a porn site,
Hey, that's not bad. It's basically gonna. I think they're just gonna buy out Truth Social at some point, and they're gonna merge.
Oh God, that. Um,
I'm sure if you have a Truth Social account, you also have an X account.
definitely, and then you can just watch lonely middle-aged men beat off on on 170 characters or less posts. Yeah, but they updated policy now where you can show your tits on Twitter and anything else I guess you want, and I don't know if this is going to make Twitter better or worse, honestly.
I don't see how it's going to make it better. I mean, like objectively, how is this porn going to be better than any other porn that's out there? First of all, so just on a pure, just like objective value of said, thing that they're going to implement.
More unhinged racism involved with it,
Yeah, like, I just don't see how it's going to be like. Sure, like you're going to get the people that like are only on X or Twitter to like be happier about being there. But like I don't think you're gonna get any more people being like, yeah, that's where I want to get my porn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
No. I'm just like, yeah, But if it's just a site for porn, will it be better than what Twitter is now?
I mean, yes.
So there you go. Is this going to make it better or worse? That was my question.
Okay, then yes, I agree. Absolutely. A porn Twitter site would be better. Honestly, would be revolutionary.
I think so. Speaking of porn on social media, Instagram updated it so you can show tits there too now, as long as it's in a breastfeeding context. So
yeah, even if it's a fake baby.
Yeah, so OnlyFans models have found a new advertising outlet. They just make sure they have a baby doll.
Just trying to help working people,
Absolutely.
Make a living.
I mean, I ain't mad about it. It's it's not what I had on my bingo card for this year, but
no,
here we are.
I don't think that either of those were on anybody's bingo card.
Twitter going porn, I kind of felt like, he's got to figure out how to reclaim his investment at some point. And
yeah, I mean, I just think it's going to go
unsurprising.
At some point,
I thought it was funny. And Rupert Murdoch, the dude who started Fox News
and Sky News in Australia.
Yeah, and every other conservative news, the guy who ruined the Wall Street Journal back when we had at least one slightly conservative news source that was still respectable journalism to go to. Yeah, he ruined that too. That motherfucker's 93. He just got married to his fifth wife.
How old is his fifth wife?
67, I want to say, which is like,
I mean, it could be worse.
It could be worse. It could be worse.
Still fucking weird.
That's a huge. It's pretty bad when you're so old. When you're so old that getting married to a 67-year-old still kind of makes you look like a pervy old guy.
Right. That person's just retiring, entering their golden years. You're entering your last year.
You're entering your crypt keeper years.
Oh Jesus! You're entering like you're entering the point where they're like, God, is this guy still fucking here? Right? God damn.
For her though, I mean that's an excellent retired. I would probably marry Rupert Murdoch.
Hey,
at this point.
That's a retirement golden
93.
Parachute. If I ever
how many
saw
months?
One.
So you could be counting down the months until you've got. Yeah,
I'd marry him right now. Absolutely.
It
would be an adjustment for sure, but I'll it's probably worth it to get those hundreds of billions or whatever.
All right.
Or just control Fox News even.
All right. So now we'll move on to less dumb,
but just wider varying news.
Yeah.
Here. So I was watching TikTok the other day, as I do.
As one does.
One content creator talked about a R.I.P. Smash Mouth lead singer. Love that guy. But he was talking about the Moms Act and how he apparently thought that it was basically going to create a federal pregnancy registry that you would have to get put on in order to monitor like your status for abortion purposes.
No, that's not what it is.
I just did a little bit of fact checking because I was like, I just put it in there. I didn't I didn't look it up.
I saw that and I actually started on the outline, started like debunking. I was like, no, we'll talk about this one in real time.
Yeah, no, I saved myself the embarrassment. It does not apparently mean that. Verified by verifyfucking.com or whatever.
And so, like, I want to put out, this is one time that the left is definitely taking something and running with it that's not accurate. Now, this is cringy as fuck legislation, because basically what Katie Britt is wanting to do, the Moms Act, is putting up a pregnancy resource, government-funded, government-provided, government-hosted pregnancy resource website that is really just anti-abortion propaganda. It's all it is.
Right.
It's really all it comes down to. It's a pregnancy resource.
Right. It's like
it's
those
disguised as pregnancy
resource centers that don't actually offer abortion or the like ability to like, guide you to a place that you can get it.
So it's bad, it's cringy, but it is not a pregnancy registry the way that the internet is kind of
being it's being described as like a gun registry that like the left wants, but on the right side,
right?
It doesn't appear to be the case.
No, it's not. So it's bad, but not life-ending or altering or anything along those lines.
Indeed.
Yeah, this one. This is one of those cases. Biden enacts the executive order, secure the border. One of those things where Democrats always end up giving Republicans everything they want, it seems like.
That fucking Overton window, I swear to God, it will never move left again.
No, this was, the sliding deck door slide for the Overton window. Biden basically is all worried about border rhetoric hurting his chances for re-election. And instead of having a spine and doing something reasonable
or helpful potentially, for the immigration discussion,
he basically just made an executive order to bar any asylum to anybody who crosses the border in a not through an area that's not a port of entry. So now a lot of times immigrants who are seeking asylum will just cross wherever they can cross, and then surrender themselves to start the asylum seeking process. And this will make them immediately deported, as far as I understand it.
Isn't there also, there's a provision for, I think it's like 2,500 arrests a day or something, of like 2,500 number, where if that gets reached, then the border gets shut down.
I haven't read into it enough to know, but
it's similar verbiage to what the bill that he tried to pass earlier this year basically had. I think it's almost the same verbiage, so it's still a Republican wet dream. But he's just doing it of his own volition now to pander to independents, I guess.
I have no idea. It goes to show how successful conservative rhetoric is and propaganda, because this is addressing a problem that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, you basically have the leader of the Democratic Party completely caving to a Republican wish list.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
That only affects the Republican base, really. Like, I mean, which
I got a ad popping up on my computer here,
which is people who are not going to vote for him anyway. So I don't understand it. It's frustrating. Moving on from that, on the bright side, this would be a very short-lived thing.
Well, unless Trump gets elected,
right, and then it'll be
doing it
long-lived. But if Biden gets reelected, then I'm assuming that this would come down immediately after. This is very much a political stunt.
I don't have any faith that it gets taken down.
No, that's fair enough. Texas is doing Texas shit again.
They just love being Texas.
I love being Texas. Openly talking about making the punishment for performing an abortion the death penalty as their official party platform in Texas. This is after Texas has completely abandoned abortions for just completely abandoned abortions in general, and made the punishment life in prison, revocation of medical license, and $100,000 in fines. And the Supreme Court just rejected a challenge of 20 women suing for more defined clarity in the vague laws of the quote-unquote medical exemption for Texas abortions that have not worked out.
Life-threatening conditions. Supposedly, life-threatening is not good enough for a reason to get a fucking abortion, according to the Supreme Court in fucking Texas. I don't understand. What the fuck are you talking about? Where there's I know there's never been exceptions. Like when they say there's exceptions for rape and incest, like it's never been the fucking thing, ever. But like now you have the Supreme Court saying like, you wrote exceptions into the law, but we're just not going to say that there are any.
Yeah,
it's like, what are you doing?
Well, and their word was, oh, it should be very clear. If the woman's life is in peril, then obviously they're not violating the law. And it's like, well, they couldn't get their abortions because of the way that they understood the law you wrote. So they're just asking for you to clarify that. And they're like, no, we're good.
Yeah, we're gonna wait for you to get criminally prosecuted first before we weigh in, because we just we can't be proactive in any way whatsoever.
In similar news, Arizona reinstated an 1864 abortion ban law, Arizona Supreme Court. So California was like, Arizona doctors can perform abortions for their patients in California. So now that's cool. People can just go over the border from Arizona into California and get an abortion legally.
Which is not the worst, because they're pretty Tucson, or like Phoenix is pretty close to San Diego. It's like what, a 6-hour drive or something like that. So it's definitely doable. Could be way worse if you live in like Texas, the south end of Texas. Like there's nowhere for you to fucking go. It's a 20-hour drive.
Might as well go to Mexico.
Right.
Kansas Supreme Court ruled that voting is not a fundamental right.
Yeah, I fucking love that too. That's just like, I love it. We're Constitution. Fuck yeah. Except, not voting.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts that this was brought up because there was some lawsuits about voter suppression and purging voter rolls and things like that. And they're like just voting is a constitutional right, and this is violating the Constitution. And Kansas Supreme Court was like, nope, it's not a constitutional right. It's not a fundamental right. You can or can't vote, maybe depending on how we feel about it today. Yep. That's where it's going to be.
Yes. Great step forward. Wonderful nation.
Huge news for democracy.
Yep. Definite dub. An actual dub is great movie. I love movies, by the way. Huge movie guy. A part of the discussion about like the SAG-AFTRA and all the like, all the strikes that were happening, is that movie theaters are where you go to see the movies.
Yeah.
But they weren't involved in any of those discussions because that was on the production side, right? So this movie theater chain now is starting to unionize in relation to being like, what the fuck are you doing there? But basically, they're doing a lot of dumb stuff. But the good news is they have started to unionize, and it's just another industry that
it's awesome. We can always have more unions. Movie theaters was not where I thought I would see unions cropping up, but I'm happy to see it.
Yes. So whether you're a waitress or a waiter or, working at a movie theater, you should be unionized. So, yeah, awesome. That's just some good news.
Yeah.
More Perfect Union has a good video on it. That's where I saw this. I think they just put it out like today or yesterday. So if you don't know More Perfect Union, definitely go check them out.
Absolutely. More Perfect Union is great. You had some stuff on Pride. I tried looking this up, and I could not find what you were talking about here.
Yeah, so I have discussions with some buddies that are on the conservative leaning side, certainly, and they were very heated about Pride down in West Hollywood. Apparently, they felt like it was just too outrageous, that the gays were being too outrageous in their celebration of Pride. And there's like a video of a bunch of dudes wearing Speedos on top of a fire truck in a parade, and apparently that's a line too far. And it's they Libs of TikTok, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard about, made a video about it too, and it just, I don't know if it's just it came on my feed or whatever. It was brought to my attention, and it's just obviously it's Pride Month, so
it's Florida, man. Dudes in speedos is the norm. I don't know what they're
and
complaining
they're even American.
about.
They were even American flag speedos too. So it's like
America.
they weren't even like Pride colored American flag. Like they were just plain old American flag speedos. So I don't know if it's just like me not seeing this stuff all the time.
Yeah,
but it felt like it was like this is gonna be a weird new norm that we're seeing. Just a lot of pushback.
I'm sure it is.
And then along the line of Pride, so there were some Pride protests against the genocide in Palestine. Actually being kind of counter protests, just like the actual Pride parade. In that, why are you celebrating when there's a genocide happening? Sort of thing.
All right. This is gonna be a super unpopular opinion. Maybe. The pro-Palestine people, which I consider myself one of, are becoming some of the biggest obstacles and opponents to their own cause. And it's...
I mean, certainly nobody's bigger than Joe Biden's administration.
Right. But the fact that, like I've seen it. I've done a fair amount of content on the topic. I have, worked. I'm doing a Operation Olive Branch, Pass the Hat thing to raise money for a family to help them get out of Gaza, and you get criticized for not doing enough, and like why? And it's like, and it's like at a certain point, you take the joy out of, existing, yeah, and trying to do. It's like you try to do something good because you feel like it's the right thing to do, and then you get pummeled for it. And it's like, you know what? Yes, there can be horrible things going on in the world, but also there can be things to celebrate going on in the world. And if you're celebrating Pride, they're not, they're mutually exclusive things, or not mutually exclusive things. They can happen at the same time, and it turns people off. It makes it exhausting to try to be on the right side of this. Not that I'm going to. What's going on in Gaza is horrific, and I would never change my opinions on that. But it's fighting your own quote unquote allies in this all the goddamn time is just getting exhausting.
Yeah, I can appreciate that aspect.
And I just wish people would have some more nuanced view of this. They're getting very unnuanced on it, and it's like, there's a lot going on that doesn't revolve around this, and it's a horrible thing, and we need to keep talking about it, and we're going to keep talking about it. But if you attack everybody who is the biggest advocates for trying to make change and help this, you're only going to make it harder to get to that change. And it's so easy to get burnt out with everything going wrong in the world. Getting attacked by the people who should be at your back and on your side is getting old. So I didn't see this New York protest thing, but if they were protesting or celebrating, and also you said they were supporting Palestine in the situation.
Yeah, there was a group of people who were part of Pride, whatever, part of the gay community that were they were like blocking a part of the parade as being like, it
just seems really misplaced. Like, this is what you're going to spend your energy doing, is like,
I don't know. I sort of, you're creating a spectacle. So like that's the whole point of a protest.
Sure, and I understand
and
that.
Like I don't know. It doesn't. I let it slide off my back. Like, it doesn't bother. Like, if they feel like it's important to them, then they have every right to make that the number one issue.
Absolutely. And I don't
think that's going to stop you from doing the right thing.
No,
it's not going to stop me from doing the right thing.
Absolutely not.
They're just taking it an extra
no,
step.
and I agree 100%. I believe in their right to do it. As I believe in everybody's right to peaceably assemble and protest. Right. I just think that they are
barking up the wrong
tree, and maybe doing more harm to they're not utilizing their resources and their time and their energy in a productive way in these situations a lot of the time. I go to DFL events all the time, and they're protesting outside of those, and I'm like, that's great. Like, that's a good place to be doing this. You're demanding something for your representatives who aren't listening to us on this sort of thing.
I can hear what you're saying in that, like, if you're gonna protest as part of Pride against the genocide, then you should do something that disrupts the Democratic Party's process as it currently exists. Yeah. No, I can agree with that. That's probably a much better way to make your point across, and won't discourage your allies from continuing to support you.
Exactly, because because a lot of people, if they feel like, oh, I'm just going to get criticized no matter what I do, if I go out and enjoy my life for a moment, and you're like, oh, well, people are dying in Gaza, and it's like, then I want to distance myself from that situation.
Life moves on with personal and not personal tragedies, certainly.
So, I don't know. It's unfortunate, and I just wish that, but this is a perennial problem on the left, is we spend so much time fighting ourselves, we never end up fighting for the issues that we need to be fighting for, and that's really frustrating.
But on that note, a little bit more internationally speaking, the New York Times just put out an article that Israel basically created a cyber division to create social media accounts to influence the discourse on the Israeli war in favor of themselves, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Like they spent millions and millions of dollars trying to just influence the discourse, put pressure on our democratic officials that are elected. So
Netanyahu has a whole department dedicated to that specifically, like
and
PR.
So I guess the reason why it's interesting is because usually that status, like the only people that do that generally are like China, Russia, North Korea, like our adversaries, and like not supposedly our greatest ally in the Middle East.
I mean, we've had some history, there as well, but yeah.
And that's not even including their the direct campaign donations to certain people and the lack thereof for others who won't support them. So just another way, another finger to point to the state apparatus that is the state of Israel. And then there was a lot of elections. This week, and some of them not so good. As you can imagine. Some of them pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. So, big one was India. Modi is reelected for his third presidential term. It's only been done one other time in history. We're the first prime minister of India, now him as well. And he's become increasingly controversial. He sort of was always controversial. But this campaign was increasingly controversial in that it was more anti-Muslim than their stance had ever been, and just very much anti-political discourse. And supposedly they've bulldozed homes of Muslims who spoke out against his, political party.
Term limits, my guys. We want him here. You should get him there.
Yeah, I don't know if you can do a fourth in India, but the good news is that he did win. But he's won by his smallest margin ever. And his party lost majority now with their coalition with another party. They still have a majority, but left-leaning groups have gained a significant inroads and gaining a lot more seats.
It's awesome to hear.
So,
I mean, it's not awesome to hear.
Silver lining, certainly. Still a shitty situation. But
El Salvador. What was this here?
So this El Salvador election, Bukele, I think is how you say his name.
That's why I stopped.
Yeah. So he was elected in, I think, 2020. And within a year of him being the president, he basically removed our Supreme Court as we think of it, and he removed all the justices and put in his own justices. And then they changed the Constitution to say that it's no longer unconstitutional to have more than one term. So he basically just rewrote the Constitution, saying, I will be able to run again. I don't give a fuck what you have to say. still not changed, I think, in their constitution. They just ruled that he can do it.
Ignored the whole constitution.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
So he won somehow with 85% of the vote.
Huh.
His biggest policy thing, and I think one and only, basically, is ending the gang violence in El Salvador.
I mean, I can see when you have just a very violent society that you're having to live through, if somebody is going to make that a priority.
It reminds me of like a Duterte situation in Indonesia. But yeah, he's jailed like 80,000 people in a couple years, and many of them without due process or the ability to someday get due process. So definitely controversial. And then on top of that, the Biden administration sent Alejandro Mayorkas, I think, down there for the inauguration ceremony. And Donald Trump Jr. was there, and Matt Gaetz and Tucker Carlson. So both sides of the U.S., potential administrations made an appearance in support of his election.
Interesting.
Weird.
That is very weird.
It's weird and
doesn't make me feel good.
No, it really doesn't.
No, I feel very icky about that.
Yeah,
not a fan.
And initially, when Bukele had sort of revamped his Supreme Court, the Biden administration was critical of him. But basically, within a year, they were like, "Okay, I guess we can work with you." So they started out on the right note, and then they just 180'd it, and now they're right on board with them somehow, just sort of skirting around that whole democracy constitution thing, the thing that we base the foundation of our society upon.
I mean, that's kind of par for the course for us, though.
No, it totally is, but it's
coup d'etat, my friend.
Right?
Coup d'etat.
It's not even a coup d'etat. It's
no, I know. We've overthrown a lot of democratic elections to put in.
We've done a lot worse, certainly. But you feel like you shouldn't see it supported so much.
Yeah.
These days. Also, the Argentinian new prime minister or president was there. The guy who's super libertarian dude. Yeah, he was there in support of him. And then on some good news, actually,
ended on some good news.
Yeah, ended on a good note. Certainly, we've gone over this long enough. So Mexico has elected their first woman president, and Claudia Sheinbaum, first woman president. Also mentioned, she's the first Jewish person to be elected as president. The Israeli state does not believe that she is Jewish enough to be considered Jewish, so they don't really recognize her as that, weirdly enough. There's a whole thing where she supposedly thanked Jesus as on stage.
She's also Mexican. That's, I feel like a prerequisite.
It also could have been a joke, but her husband might be named Jesus. Or Jesus.
Jesus.
It might be a joke. I just heard that. It might have been a joke, but anyway. So yeah, apparently she's not Jewish enough for them to support. But anyways, the good news about her, obviously, first woman president. That's
amazing.
That's awesome.
Showing us up again.
Yeah, she's definitely on the side of feminist. Whether she'll do good things for women,
yet to be seen. I mean, obviously, there's only so much you can do in a presidential position.
Yeah, so she is kind of like the predecessor to the previous president, and is part of the same party.
No,
and he sort of just gave lip service to supposedly to those feminine causes. So obviously, being a woman, you'd hope that she follows through on some of those promises and those goals a little bit more. But regardless of that, she is in favor of a lot of things that we would really like to have in the United States, namely a public health care option.
I mean, Mexico already has a public health care option.
Or supporting it further or whatever. They have nationalized a couple of the natural resource environments recently, and she's going to continue to do that. She's for like public health, public education beyond
what they already have.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
So like she's and just like the continuing some sort of law about continuing minimum wage increases. Whatever, more than we do in the United States. So
she's Mexico showing us up.
She's in favor of a lot of things that will meaningfully affect the lives of everyday citizens. So she's still center-ish, but she's left of center. So hopefully they do a lot of good things.
This is why the Republicans' biggest policy platform is a wall right now is not to keep the Mexicans out. It's to keep us in because they know Mexico's getting better and we're getting worse. And if they get what they want, we're going to want to leave. Anyway, no, that's awesome. Congratulations to Mexico for electing their first woman president. Also, huge condolences for all the violence surrounding their election season.
A very violent election. Around supposedly 37 candidates were assassinated,
which is
throughout the election.
Horrifying. So, that's a tragedy.
Then again, the United States supports the cartel in our drug policy.
Oh, we absolutely do. I mean, the cartel exists because of United States drug policy.
So just to understand that America is responsible in some way.
Yep, absolutely.
Might be a couple, parts removed, but we're somewhat responsible for that political violence.
But huge condolences to everybody who has suffered as a result of the violence around this election season. But huge congrats, first woman president. That's huge. And we look forward to seeing what she's going to do. I think that's it. I don't know. I feel like we could be news anchors.
Yeah, is Fox 9 News.
I don't know how many of these current event ones we'll do, but I thought it was worth hitting. And once again, as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in and hanging out with us while we ramble on here. A little more ad-libbed than usual, I feel like, but I thought
it was spot on, if you ask me. Perfect, immaculate.
Couldn't have been. Like I said, that's why we should be news anchors. We're taking job offers right now.
That's right. We're accepting requests for applications.
But anyway, guys, if you like the podcast and you want to support, you can support just by listening, by watching on the YouTube channel. We do it in video format there. We've been testing out with a live here that people can watch, although I noticed I somehow got a violation for something while we were recording already.
We dropped a lot of Effenheimers. I don't know if that's part of it. You can
swear. I don't know what it is. I'll have to look see what it is. But so if you guys want to tune into those occasionally too, you can see behind the scenes, get a sneak peek before we do it. We if you want to support us a little bit more financially, we have ways to do that on the link tree on YouTube, on my TikTok and the Let Them Eat Toast TikTok. We also have a Patreon account and a subscription service on YouTube.
And we're trying to get a subscription service for Apple Podcasts as well. I know a lot of our podcast listeners are on
most
the Apple.
Of our podcasts.
I am just having some technical difficulties with our podcast hosting platform right now. It's being difficult, but working on it.
And if you want something a little more tangible for your support, if you want to support us but want something back for it aside from the amazing, awesome, indispensable content we give you,
that's right.
You can buy merch at offjawagon.com. Otherwise, again, we just appreciate the hell out of you guys being here and giving us the opportunity to do this. Please follow me if you don't.
Please share. If you feel like there's anybody who would enjoy it. Even if that's all you do, that's enough.
It's huge. It's huge. And please follow me if you don't already. Off Jawagon on TikTok, Instagram, and the Facebookies and YouTube. And then follow the Let Them Eat Toast podcast as well. On all of those same platforms.
Yeah, and all the podcasts.
And all platforms. The podcasts.
Definitely reach out, comments on our TikTok or whatever, if there's a particular platform that we have not reached yet for the podcasting.
Nope. All right. Sounds great, guys. We appreciate the hell out of you hanging out with us, and we will see you next week.
That's right.